Hello students, welcome to our today's lesson. I am teacher Alice. I am taking you through Form 2 chemistry topic known as salts. So we have been looking at this topic and today we are in lesson 4 and we are looking at the effects of the exposure of salts to the atmosphere. What happens to salts when we expose them to the atmosphere? So we first define two terms, a hydrated salt and also an anhydrous salt. So what is a hydrated salt? So a hydrated salt is a salt that contains some water of crystallization. So any salt that contains water of crystallization is known as a hydrated salt. Then an anhydrous salt is a salt that do not contain water of crystallization. An anhydrous salt is a salt that does not contain water of crystallization. So sometimes you'll find a salt written like copper sulfate dot 10 H2O. It means that salt of copper sulfate is hydrated. But if there's no water at the end of the formula, it means that the salt is anhydrous. Now we are going to define or look at some terms related to salts and the processes when we leave or when we expose the salts to the atmosphere. The first one is known as deliquescent salts. What are or which are these salts that we refer to as deliquescent salts? So deliquescent salts are salts that absorb so much water. Underline, they absorb so much water from the atmosphere and they form solutions. So all the salts that absorb a lot of water from the atmosphere forming a solution is known as a deliquescent salt. The process in which now these salts are absorbing water to form solutions is called deliquescence. So the salt that absorbs a lot of water from the atmosphere to form a solution is known as a deliquescent salt. Then the process of absorbing so much water from the environment or from the atmosphere to form a solution is known as deliquescence. Examples of deliquescent salts are, for example, calcium chloride, zinc chloride, iron 2 and iron 3 chloride, potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide. Those are deliquescent salts. The second type of salts we look at is hygroscopic salts. What are they? What are hygroscopic salts? Hygroscopic salts are salts that absorb water from the atmosphere and they become damp, but they do not form solutions. So the only difference between deliquescent and hygroscopic salts is that hygroscopic salts do not form solutions. They just become damp, but they do not form solutions. So meaning they do not absorb a lot of water. So they absorb less water and they become damp. The process in which some salts absorb water from the atmosphere and become damp is called hygroscopy. So you can see the name of the process is coming from the name of the salts. So hygroscopy, hygroscopic salts. Examples we have anhydrous copper sulfate, anhydrous potassium nitrate, common table salts. So common table salt is impure sodium chloride. So pure sodium chloride is not hygroscopic, but common table salt is hygroscopic because it contains magnesium chloride. So when you are asked to give examples of hygroscopic salts, do not give the example of sodium chloride, but just mention common table salts. So those are hygroscopic salts. So you have to note that for the liquescent salts and hygroscopic salts, these are anhydrous. They do not contain water of crystallization. They are anhydrous salts. So they are absorbing water from the atmosphere. When you expose them, they absorb water and they become hydrated. So they do not contain. So when you are giving the examples, you have to mention that they are anhydrous. So anhydrous copper sulfate, anhydrous potassium nitrate. Those are examples of hygroscopic salts. The third types of salts we have are efflorescent salts. So what are they? These are salts that lose. Underline that. They are salts that lose some water of crystallization when exposed to the atmosphere. So these are hydrated salts. They contain some water of crystallization. So when you expose these salts to the atmosphere, they will lose some of that water of crystallization. So efflorescent salts is the opposite of the hygroscopic and the liquescent salts. So efflorescent salts lose water of crystallization. Then the process in which or by which some salts lose water of crystallization when exposed to the atmosphere is called efflorescence. So efflorescence, the process, efflorescent salts, the salts that lose some water of crystallization when exposed to the atmosphere. Examples of efflorescent salts are hydrated sodium carbonate, hydrated iron sulfate, hydrated sodium sulfate, and so on. So these are examples of efflorescent salts. They contain some water of crystallization. So when you expose them to the atmosphere, they lose some of their water of crystallization. So that marks the end of our lesson 4. Let us meet again for lesson 5, which will be the effects of salts, effects of heat on salts. Till we meet again, subscribe to the channel and click the button, the subscribe button, and you share so that the video may reach other students.